So this was a real question I had recently in Excel. It almost is one of those things where truth is stranger than fiction, but this was real. And let me show you what this is all about. We have right now this part is hidden. I'll show you in a second here. But we have different columns of data. So this is the first column. This is data one, and in this column we have different groups of numbers. The different groups are when we see a space that's the start of a new group. So this is group 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now, we have this formula here that I created, which is really not that difficult, and it dynamically creates the group number. Now, watch what happens. This is a required functionality. If I come in here and add a new number, 800, all of a sudden, we only have 3 groups. This is now one big group. If we go back and delete the 2221, delete it like this, now we are back to having 1, 2, 3, 4 groups. So that was just one of the very interesting things that we need to do here. So before we go any further, I'm going to check. I have these switches over here. These are checkboxes which are connected to conditional formatting. So not only do we have this interesting data challenge, but we need to be able to present this and easily show people what's going on with these numbers. So we're going to check that box. And now we see the borders around these numbers. And if we go in here and add a number or delete a number, this will change. Let me just prove that. 500, press enter, and now that's one big group again. I go in here and delete, and the conditional formatting updates to put borders around our values. So let's look at the requirements here. Bold numbers in the top X per column. So this first requirement doesn't really care that there's different groups. We go into this cell, we type in, we care about the top 7. I'm going to change this to the top 8, right? Top 8, this is the top 8 value, which I use in my conditional formatting formulas. And so we want to bold the numbers in top X. I'm going to come over here and check this one. So now they're bold and italic and they jump out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, down here 7 and 8, the numbers in the top 8. So that's one thing. And the number 2, this is kind of the tricky one. Highlight entire group if X% of group numbers are in the top X%. Wow. So this is also possible, and once you think about it and test it and create the rule, it's not really that hard in the end. But let me check this little box over here, and now it shows us that hey, this group here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 numbers, 2 are in the top 8, and that is so 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is greater than 20%. Now, as I show you the other numbers that are hidden here, the other columns, it's going to get difficult to sort of go in here and count them and to verify and make sure. So I also built this little thing here, which I'll show you, and this will update dynamically. So first of all, data 1. Group 1 has 6 numbers. 2 out of 6 numbers is greater than equal to our 8th highest value, which is right there, and that's 33%. 33% is greater than our target of 20%. So that is why this group is green, this one's green. But look what happens though. If I change this to the top 3, now none of the groups qualify. So if I put this back to top 5, we only have this one group. Now, notice how this is still looking at the group 1, data 1. All I have to do is come over here and change these controls. I click like, let me see, data 1, group 2, data 1, group 2. So this now tells us data 1, group 2 has 9 numbers. 3 out of the 9 numbers, 1, 2, 3, are greater than our target of 2,999, the 5th largest number. And so this percent of 1/3 of the numbers greater than their target is greater than 20%, so it's green. So let me go back here and change this back to 7, and now we have 2 groups that qualify. So what we'll do is just move this to the side for a second. And oh yeah, so number 3, functionality to switch off 1 and 2 above, to just go back to the raw numbers and the group numbers. So we just have to uncheck all this stuff, and we would go back to just the raw numbers. And solution must work with many columns, different size groups. That was also the big challenge. I'm going to move this over to the side here. And now there's a little text box here. I'm just going to delete this. And now you see all the numbers, which can sort of drive your eyes crazy. But that's how all these switches come into play to make it much more readable. So let's just check this out. Check this one. It highlights all the different groups. Let's go into there just to prove it once again, and I'm going to delete that number, and now we've got 4 groups. Check the next thing. We bold it, all of these columns of numbers are looking to the top. So this column, it looks to the top. We care about top 6. This is the top 6 value. The target is 15%. So let's see what happens when we go to the next one. This group has, well, let's bring this over. We don't want to have to manually calculate this. We're looking at data 3, group 2. Okay, so data 3, and there it is. Data 3, group 2 has 6 numbers. This group here that's highlighted in green has 6 numbers. 2 out of 6, greater than our target of 3,276. That's a 1/3, and that is greater than our target of 15%. If I change this to 50%, this is nothing in this column J is now highlighted in green. If I bring this back, lower it down to 20%, we have 2 groups that qualify. This group and this group. So now, this was like one of those little bonus requirements that was added on. If I check this, this will turn off all the other groups so that all that clutter is gone. It didn't delete anything, it just made all the font white. So now we can just focus on this one. But watch what happens. This is pretty cool. If I just change, let's say I want to change the group. We're going down here. And then you just slide this down. It doesn't qualify. There's only one number, 1 out of 7, that's greater than that 6th largest value. But if we take this 20% and lower it below the 14, let's make it 12, all of a sudden this group qualifies. And then we can move this around back and forth anywhere we want to go in here. And this was a lot of fun to create. At first I thought, whoa, is this even possible? But yes, of course it is. Now, let's now spend just a couple of minutes looking at how I did this. So requirement number 1, bring this up here. Bold the numbers in the top X per column. This is the conditional formatting formula. Just using the AND function to say, hey, are all 3 of these things true? If all 3 things are true, this first requirement, the second one, and the third one, then it evaluates to true, and we get our bold and italic to make those numbers jump out a bit. So that's requirement number 1. In the end, it wasn't that difficult. Requirement number 2, this was the tough one. Highlight entire group if X%, the green, basically make the groups green. And this is the formula. Once again, it's the AND function. If all these things inside of here are true, then it evaluates to true, and we get our formatting, which is the green. And then we have our third requirement, and that's just adding these switches. And when you look at the other requirements, when it says over here that has to be true, these have to be turned on, and there's a cell that gets the true or false value. Well, that's easy to do, and we can prove that by just going over here and turning all this stuff off, like interacting with these guys, right? And see how that works. Now, last but not least, let's just jump into conditional formatting and show you. There were several rules to create the borders around the groups. And that took a few minutes, but it was definitely possible. You go in here, and the whole area, the rules work on everything. Instead of having like 50 different rules for all the different columns, it works on everything. So when you scroll down, you see that these are the rules that put the borders around everything. So this one was so fun to create because it was so unique, and it just proves how creative Excel is and how much fun it can be.